My name is Anna Folkerts, and I'm 30. If you'd asked me 6 months ago what peace looks like, I would have told you it's the color of old pine, sun softened, honey warm, lined with the patient fingerprints of a man who taught me how to keep things that matter alive. Grandpa's cabin isn't a showpiece. It leans into the mountain like it knows the wind by first name. There's a nail on the porch beam we never pulled because he said every mark is a memory, and memories are anchors. I grew up there, summers of splinters and lemonade and learning which board always squeaks at midnight. When he died 2 years ago, he left the cabin to me. No fanfare, just a will that said, essentially, Anna understands. She'll take care of it. I did. I still do. Weekends of plumbing runs and patch staining and the kind of cleaning you do when you're also trying to clean your mind. The place became my sanctuary, the room where my lungs finally learned how to exhale after a week in the city. Then my little sister, Emily, 28, perfect winged eyeliner, calendar full of bridal Pinterest, got engaged to Brandon. She announced it over dinner with our parents, Robert and Patricia. Mom grabbed my hand like she'd just won a raffle and said, "A mountain wedding. Emily's always dreamed of one." I should have heard the hinge creak then, the door swing to a familiar room. A week later, Mom called, with a tone she uses for three things: church bake sales, sympathy cards, and the redistribution of other people's property. "Sweetheart," she said, "let's do something generous. Transfer the cabin to Emily as a wedding gift. She's starting a family. You're not there yet. You make good money. You can buy something for yourself later. This would show you're a supportive sister." I went quiet, the kind of quiet where your heart scrapes against your ribs. Dad took the phone. He never yells. He curates disappointment. "Anna, family means sacrifice. Your sister has always had a steeper climb than you. Isn't it time to even the scales?" The biography he implied for me was the one I've been assigned since childhood. The capable one, the problem solver, the soft place for everyone else to land. But the facts? Emily got the fully paid masters, 3 cars by 22, rent stipends. I worked double shifts, took loans, learned to stretch one winter coat through 5 winters, and call it character. That night, I stared at the ceiling fan, chopping the dark into equal slices. I thought about Grandpa's laugh echoing off the lake. I thought about how my mother said gift like it was a virtue and not a venison strip they expected me to lay at the family table. I barely slept. Emily called in the morning, crying. Not the messy kind. The tidy tears that sound good on speaker. "I don't want to cause drama," she said, "but it's embarrassing to tell Brandon's family my sister owns the perfect venue and won't even let us use it." I said, "You're welcome to use it for the wedding, Em. I'll help prep it. But transfer? No." Silence, then a sniff. So it's a no on being generous. By lunch, the group chat woke up. Aunts and uncles who hadn't texted me in months had suddenly discovered the ministry of reconciliation. Family first. Don't let a building divide you. Your grandfather would want this. The words were cut and paste, the kind that have been floating in our lineage like pollen. When my phone finally stopped trembling, I met Evan on our block. He's my boyfriend, the kind of man who brings you ginger tea and doesn't ask you to smile to make him more comfortable. We sat on a stoop with the late sun turning the bricks to orange clay. "Tell me everything," he said. I did. I told him about the calls, the edges in my father's voice, Emily's soft weapon crying, the group chat verdicts, the way my body went cold when Mom called me selfish. Evan didn't flinch. "What do you want?" "I want to keep what Grandpa gave me," I said. "I want to keep my peace." "Then that's the answer," he said. "Say it once, mean it twice, enforce it 3 times. He slid his phone across. On the screen was a note titled, "Lines I Won't Cross." "My therapist made me write mine," he said. "Make yours." I typed, "The cabin is mine. I am allowed to keep what I was given without apology." Then, smaller, "I am not a bad daughter or a bad sister for refusing to be harvested." He kissed my temple. "We're okay?" "We're okay," I said. And we were. If you're wondering about Sabrina, the ex-girlfriend still orbiting his friend group like space debris, that's a different knot, and it's smaller than this one. She congratulated Emily on Instagram with a caption about some sisters knowing how to show up, which is classic Sabrina. I filed it away under petty weather systems. Chance of drizzle, not a hurricane. Days turned into a grinding loop. Work, dread, the phone lighting up with new strategies to reshape reality. Mom cycled through tones. Saintly, scolding, grief-stricken. Dad stayed surgical. Emily alternated between fragile and steel. I started drafting a message to our family group, backspacing every other sentence because every sentence sounded like a defense, and I was tired of pleading not guilty in a court that ran on feelings. On the third night, I drove to the cabin. The road curled up the mountain, and somewhere around the second switchback, my lungs remembered how to fill. I unlocked the door, and the smell, pine and dust and last summer's soap, wrapped around me like a blanket stitched by time. I turned on the small lamp Grandpa loved, the one that warms the knot in the wood like a sunrise. I whispered, "What would you do?" A stupid question, maybe. He'd already told me. He'd written it down. The next morning, I called the only person who might answer in a language older than our family's curated disappointment. "Aunt Catherine," I said when she picked up. "It's Anna." A pause, then a chuckle that sounded like a match being struck. "Oh, honey, is it happening again?" "What?" "Come for lunch," she said. "I'll make soup, and I'll bring the box." "What box?" "The one with receipts." The line went quiet. The wind at the cabin did its slow-motion waltz, and somewhere far off, a bird said something that sounded like careful. I stood in Grandpa's kitchen, turning his old enamel mug between my hands, and felt the smallest click inside, like a lock I hadn't noticed was there. On my drive back to the city, the guilt fog didn't lift exactly, but I could see its edges, and sometimes that's enough, at the beginning, to know you're not crazy. You're just in a room where everyone keeps insisting the wallpaper is a window. That night, Mom called again, voice bright and buzzing. "Have you thought about the transfer paperwork? Emily's anxious. Venues book up?" "I've thought," I said. My voice surprised me, calm, like the lake on a windless morning. "I'm not transferring the cabin. Emily can use it for the wedding weekend, free, but the cabin stays with me." A beat. Then Dad came on the line, smooth as always. "Anna, your grandfather would be ashamed. You weren't special to him. You were convenient. He invited you up there because Emily had better things to do. You're twisting his senility into a prize." "Grandpa was sharp," I said, and my hands were trembling, but my voice wasn't. "And this isn't a prize. It's a promise." I hung up. Then I typed my boundaries into a message I could send when my hands stopped shaking. Evan texted a thumbs-up emoji that somehow felt like a hand at the small of my back, steadying. Aunt Catherine's address glowed on my screen for the next morning. I crawled into bed and stared at the ceiling fan and thought of the cabin's squeaky board, the way it sings at midnight like a warning bell or a welcome, depending on which side of the truth you're standing. I picked up my phone and added one more line to my note. "If they escalate, I will not follow them up the staircase. I will stand on the landing and let them pass me by." I slept, not long, but finally, deeply. And when morning came, I was ready to hear about the box, ready to hear the old story, told straight, ready to find out whether the family I've been protecting is the same family that's been quietly carving pieces from me and calling it love. When I got to Aunt Catherine's house the next day, the air already smelled like rosemary and confrontation. She lived in a sun-faded yellow bungalow about 40 minutes from the city, small, tidy, with wind chimes that sounded like half-forgotten songs. I hadn't seen her properly since I was a teenager. She opened the door before I could knock. Her hair was silver now, but her eyes, sharp and amber, hadn't dulled one bit. "Well," she said, looking me up and down, "you've got Robert's stubborn jaw, but thank God you've got your grandfather's eyes." Inside, the kitchen table was already set, 2 bowls of soup, a plate of bread, and a shoebox-sized container labeled Family Affairs. She saw me glance at it and smirked. "Told you I'd bring the box." I sat. "What's in there?" "History," she said. "The kind your parents hoped everyone would forget." She started from the beginning. The jewelry. 15 years ago, she said, your grandmother wanted to leave me her collection. It wasn't worth much money, but every piece had a story. I knew each one by heart. She sipped her soup, hands steady. 2 weeks before she passed, your parents showed up. They told her that I was being selfish, that heirlooms should skip a generation and go to Emily, the next young woman in the family. They said it would keep the love alive. They made sure half the relatives were there to witness the performance. "They pressured Grandma into changing her will?" I asked. "She was dying, Anna. She wanted peace, so she changed it. She gave the jewelry to Emily, and your parents declared victory. And do you know what your sister did?" I shook my head. "She sold most of it within 2 years. The 1925 engagement ring, the gold pendant from our great-grandmother, the cameo brooch, all gone. designer handbags, spa weekends, photo ops. Catherine's laugh was brittle. That ring had been worn for 60 years, sold for a purse Emily used for one summer. Something heavy settled behind my ribs. They've done this before, haven't they? She nodded. Many times. When I was in college, I saved up to buy a car. Robert convinced our parents that my savings should go toward his tuition instead. When I inherited money from a great aunt, he said it would be better invested in his first business venture, which collapsed in 6 months. She leaned forward. Every time I had something that was mine, they made me feel selfish for keeping it. It's their signature move. Rewrite the story until generosity and guilt look the same, and they always find people to echo their script. Her words hit like slow thunder. My parents' phrasing, family means sacrifice, do the right thing, don't be selfish, wasn't spontaneous. It was practiced, rehearsed, generational. I said quietly, Mom told me Grandpa would be ashamed if I kept the cabin. Catherine's eyes softened. He'd be proud, Anna. That's why he left it to you. He told me himself. Anna's the only one who understands what that place means. She sees it like I do. My throat closed. He said that? She reached across the table, touched my hand. He knew they'd try this. That's why he made the will so explicit. It wasn't about favoritism. It was protection. We sat in silence for a moment, the soup cooling between us. Then Catherine pulled a folder from the box. Newspaper clippings, photocopied checks, even old handwritten notes. Your father's always been good at repackaging greed as virtue. I kept receipts because someone had to. I leafed through them. There was proof of loans that were never repaid, gifts that had somehow only gone one direction. Even a photocopy of a check from Grandpa's account labeled Robert, down payment assistance, with "Thank you, Dad," scrawled on the memo line in my father's handwriting. Catherine said, They've been draining the family well for decades, and every time they say it's for balance. The truth is, they just don't believe anyone else deserves to have more than them. She looked at me hard. You need to ask yourself one question, Anna. What happens after you give them the cabin? I froze. I hadn't thought about that. They'll find something else. They always do. Once they know guilt works, they'll never stop using it. I gave in to keep the peace once, and there was no peace, only more demands. Outside, wind rattled the chimes again. For the first time, I noticed they were shaped like keys. I needed to hear this, I said softly. Catherine smiled, not kindly, but approvingly. Good, because they'll escalate soon. They'll twist Grandpa's memory. They'll make you question what's real. But remember, truth doesn't need a campaign. Lies do. I left her house with the folder tucked under my arm. By the time I got home, my phone was already buzzing. Mom, again. I let it ring. I stood by the window and looked at the city skyline fading into dusk. I thought about Grandpa sanding the porch rail, humming under his breath, about every nail he hammered so carefully, about how much of me was built from his patience, and how much of my guilt came from someone else's blueprint. I made a call, not to my parents, to Grandpa's lawyer. Mr. Dalton, I said when he answered, this is Anna Folkerts. I need to confirm something about my grandfather's estate. He remembered me immediately. Of course, Anna. What would you like to know? Was there ever any discussion of the cabin going to anyone else? He paused for a moment. Papers rustled. No, he said firmly. Your grandfather was very clear. He left it specifically to you. He said, and I quote, Anna understands what that place means. She'll take care of it. My breath caught. The same words Catherine had told me, the same ones in the will. I hung up and looked down at my hands. They were trembling, but this time it wasn't fear. It was recognition. The body remembering how to stand tall after being hunched for too long. I opened the note on my phone. Lines I won't cross. At the bottom, I typed, I will not surrender peace to prove I am kind. I can love my family without letting them ruin me. That night, the guilt didn't vanish. It just got quieter, like a TV turned down in another room. I fell asleep hearing Grandpa's voice from memory, steady, proud, and certain. Take care of our place, Anna. I whispered back, I will. I thought Aunt Catherine's warning about escalation was metaphorical. It wasn't. 2 mornings later, I sent a carefully worded group text to my parents and Emily. I've decided to keep the cabin as Grandpa intended. However, Emily, you're welcome to use it for your wedding weekend free of charge. I'll help with setup if you'd like. I hit send, thinking I was being fair, thinking reason would matter. Within an hour, my phone exploded. Dad called first. His tone wasn't calm anymore. It was cutting, surgical rage disguised as disappointment. You know what? I'm glad your grandfather isn't here to see this. He thought you were different, but you're just selfish. He invited you up there because Emily had better things to do. You were the consolation prize, Anna. I said nothing, not because I agreed, but because silence was the only weapon I had that didn't draw blood. Then Emily texted, I can't believe you were trying to make yourself look generous by letting me use what should be family property. Brandon's family is appalled. I told them we were close, but clearly I was wrong. And that opened the floodgates. Aunt Marcy, Uncle Tony, Cousin Lisa, people I hadn't heard from in years, all popped up with variations of the same sermon. Family first. Don't be selfish. Keep Grandpa's memory alive. Alive apparently meant handing it over to Emily. It would have broken me a few weeks earlier, but this time I remembered Catherine's voice. They know which buttons to push. So I muted the group. That night, I was at Evan's apartment when my phone buzzed nonstop. He glanced at the screen, frowned. Do you want me to turn it off? No, I said. I want to remember exactly how this feels, so I'll never fall for it again. He nodded, understanding. He didn't try to fix it, just poured me tea and let me breathe. The next morning, Catherine called. You holding up? She asked. Barely. Then let me lighten your load, she said, her tone sharp as flint. Since your parents and sister want to drag the family into this, I think the family deserves the truth. Catherine! It's time, I'm posting it. Before I could ask what she meant, she hung up. 10 minutes later, my cousin Sarah texted me a screenshot. Catherine had posted a statement, no, a bombshell, in our family Facebook group. Since everyone seems concerned about fairness, here are some numbers. Over the years, Robert and Patricia received $50,000 from our parents for Robert's failed business, $30,000 for their home down payment, and full tuition coverage for Emily, $120,000. They also received 2 vehicles, plus miscellaneous gifts totaling over $200,000 in today's value. Anna received student loans and a bus pass. The cabin was left to her specifically because she maintained it every summer and was the only grandchild who cared for it. If anyone wants to discuss fairness, let's start there. Attached beneath her words were photos, old checks, emails, even a scan of Grandpa's handwritten note. Anna takes care of the place. She should have it. It hit the group like an earthquake. Hundreds of comments, dozens of shocked relatives. My phone buzzed like a wasp hive. Uncle James called me. Is this true? He asked quietly. Yes, I said. He exhaled. Your father told us you got everything, that you were spoiled. The line went quiet except for his sigh. We've been defending them for years. The next few hours felt like watching a house burn in slow motion. Half the family messaged me privately, apologizing. The other half doubled down, claiming Catherine was bitter and vindictive. Mom emailed a family-wide statement. Catherine's lies are malicious and designed to divide us. She's never forgiven us for old grievances and is manipulating Anna into turning against her parents. That line, manipulating Anna, made me laugh. The irony was too thick to swallow. Then, just when I thought the day couldn't get worse, Emily showed up at my apartment. No warning, no courtesy, just pounding on the door until I opened it. Her face was red, streaked with mascara. How could you let her do this? She shouted before I could speak. She's turned everyone against Mom and Dad. They're devastated. Dad had to take time off work because he's so stressed. Emily. No, you think you're some kind of hero? You've humiliated our family. You're ruining my wedding. I tried to stay calm. Emily, is what Catherine posted true or false? She blinked. That's not the point. It is the point, I said quietly. Her mask cracked. You've always had it easier. You're the smart one, the favorite. The cabin was supposed to balance things out. And there it was. The truth finally said aloud. It was never about need. It was about fairness. The kind of fairness that meant giving Emily everything until she felt even. I'm done, I said. Please leave. She stepped closer, eyes hardening. If you don't give me the cabin, you'll regret it. My chest tightened. What's that supposed to mean? Her lips curved into a cold smile. Brandon's a lawyer. Grandpa had dementia at the end. Wills can be contested. She turned and walked out. I stood frozen. Then instinct kicked in. I grabbed my phone and checked the voice recorder. The entire conversation had been captured. 2 days later, I was served legal papers. Emily and my parents were contesting the will, claiming undue influence and diminished capacity. When I called Catherine, she didn't sound surprised. Classic intimidation tactic, she said. Don't panic. I know someone. Her friend, a family attorney named Martin, looked through the documents and laughed. Your grandfather's estate lawyer, Dalton, is known for airtight paperwork. He wouldn't have filed that will without medical clearance. He was right. Dalton sent over copies of Grandpa's final medical evaluations. Cognitive tests, all clear, dated just months before the will update. The lawsuit was a scare tactic, but a costly one. Still, it backfired spectacularly. The same relatives who'd preached family unity suddenly turned on my parents and Emily. Even the ones who'd been neutral called the lawsuit disgraceful. Uncle James told my father directly, "You're suing over your dead father's wishes. That's disgusting." Aunt Marcy called it grave robbing. Within a week, the suit was dropped, but the damage was permanent. The family group went silent. No more slogans. No more family first. Just the digital echo of a crumbling dynasty. I should have felt relief, but instead I felt hollow. It wasn't just that my parents and sister had tried to steal from me. It was that they'd done it so easily, without a flicker of shame. That night, Evan held me while I cried, quietly, without words. When I finally stopped shaking, he whispered, "They showed you who they are, Anna. Believe them." I nodded. "I do. I just wish it didn't hurt so much to finally see it." Outside, the city hummed, indifferent, alive. Inside, I made another note to myself. They can lie. They can manipulate, but they can't take away what's true. And the truth finally was on my side. 3 days after the lawsuit was dropped, I got a text from an unknown number. "Hi, this is Brandon. Could we talk? Coffee, maybe?" For a long minute, I just stared at the screen. My first instinct was to delete it. But something about the message, the quiet tone, the absence of accusation, made me hesitate. Evan glanced over from the couch. "Who's that?" "Emily's fiancé." He sat up. "Is that a good idea?" "Probably not," I said, "but I need to hear what he has to say." We met at a cafe near his office. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, suit slightly rumpled. Nothing like the polished lawyer I remembered from engagement photos. "I appreciate you meeting me," he said, voice low. "I just need some clarity." "About what?" He rubbed his temples. "About everything. Emily told me you agreed to give her the cabin, that the lawsuit was a formality. Then suddenly everyone's talking about family money, lies, and manipulation. I feel like I've been living in someone else's script." I studied him. "You didn't know about the lawsuit?" He shook his head. "I signed papers she said were venue contracts. I didn't even read them. That's on me." For a lawyer, that was an astonishing confession. He continued, voice cracking slightly. "I started noticing things. The way she talks about money, how it's always someone else's fault when she doesn't have enough. The way your parents rush to fix everything. The way she says she deserves nice things because life's been unfair." He looked up at me. "Has she always been like this?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Pretty much. Since we were kids, the rules bent for her. The rest of us were expected to understand." Brandon exhaled. "She told me you were the golden child, that your parents favored you, that she was the one who struggled." I took out my phone and showed him Catherine's Facebook post. The receipts, the numbers, the photos of Emily with her third car at 21. His face went pale. "She said you got everything," he whispered. "That's what she told me." "She needed a villain to make her story make sense," I said softly. "I was convenient." He sat back, eyes distant. "I'm starting to realize a lot of things don't add up. The tuition, the rent your parents cover, the credit card bills she hides from me." He fell silent, then looked at me with weary honesty. "I don't think I'm marrying the person I thought I was." I didn't gloat. I just nodded, because beneath the sadness, there was relief. Not because Emily's wedding might crumble, but because truth had finally found a witness outside the family web. When we stood to leave, he said, "I'm sorry for everything she and your parents put you through." "You don't owe me an apology," I said. "Just don't let them rewrite your reality too." 3 days later, Emily called me, screaming, "You destroyed my life. Brandon's postponed the wedding. He wants couples therapy. He said you showed him the truth." "What did you tell him, Anna?" "The truth," I said simply. "That's all." Her voice twisted into something venomous. "You think you've won? You've turned everyone against us." "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." She hung up. Meanwhile, my parents went into full damage control mode, their favorite sport. Mom started telling relatives the lawsuit had been Emily's idea, that she and Dad had tried to stop it. Dad told anyone who'd listen that the will was misunderstood and that I'd overreacted. But the problem with lies is that they need a steady audience, and Catherine had already burned down their stage. One by one, relatives came forward with their own stories. My cousin Nicholas said Dad convinced him to invest in a sure thing business venture that turned out to be a pyramid scheme. Aunt Jennifer shared how Mom guilt-tripped her into giving Emily her late mother's china set, which Emily sold within a year. Even distant cousins messaged me privately. We always wondered why your parents talked about fairness but never acted it. It was like someone had pulled a thread that unraveled decades of quiet exploitation. The family that once functioned like a chorus of keep the peace suddenly fell silent. Some relatives stopped replying to my parents' group messages altogether. Others unfriended them online. The invisible crown of model couple they'd worn for years was gone. Then came the rumors, the final desperate tactic. Sabrina, Evan's ex, posted a cryptic Instagram story. Some people pretend to be victims to feel special. Sad. No names, but the timing was perfect. Evan showed it to me. She's baiting you, he said. I laughed, sharp and tired. Let her. She's a minor storm compared to this hurricane. But later that night, I scrolled through the comments and saw Emily's best friend had liked the post. Small world, smaller loyalty. I set the phone down and breathed. They can gossip all they want. The truth doesn't need defense. Evan nodded. Exactly. And you're done defending yourself. A week later, Catherine came by the cabin. She'd started visiting often. She brought coffee and a wry smile. Your father called me, she said, sitting on the porch. Oh? He asked if I was proud of myself for destroying the family. I told him, no, Robert. You did that when you tried to steal from your daughter's dead grandfather. He hung up. I couldn't help it. I laughed. The kind of laugh that feels like oxygen after months underwater. Catherine watched me carefully. You okay, kiddo? I nodded. Yeah, for the first time in a long time. I think I am. She smiled. Good, because it's not over yet. People like your parents, they don't apologize. They regroup. I know, I said, but I'm not afraid anymore. That night, I stood on the porch after she left. The air smelled like rain and pine. I looked out at the lake, where the reflection of the cabin lights shimmered like ghosts of old summers. For years, I thought keeping peace meant keeping quiet. But silence, I realized, is how the rot spreads. I whispered to the dark, I am not the selfish one. And for once, the mountain didn't echo back doubt, just stillness. It's been 2 months since the lawsuit crumbled and the truth finally detonated. If you'd told me back then that the silence of my phone would one day feel like freedom, I would have laughed. But now, silence is gold. Silence is peace. Emily's wedding never happened. Brandon officially called it off 6 weeks ago. He sent me a short message afterward, just a thank you. You helped me see what I couldn't. I wish you peace, Anna. Emily, of course, saw it differently. She left me a voicemail the next day, all venom wrapped in grief. You ruined my life over a stupid cabin. Are you happy now? I didn't reply, because it wasn't about the cabin anymore. It never was. My parents tried one last time. It was a Sunday afternoon, overcast, that strange, heavy quiet before rain. I was at the cabin when their car rolled up the gravel driveway without warning. They looked smaller than I remembered. Dad's shoulders hunched, Mom's eyes puffy. Anna, Mom began, her voice trembling. We just want our family back. This fighting has torn us apart. Dad nodded, ever the diplomat. If you'd just apologize to Emily, maybe share the cabin. We can put all this behind us. There it was, the same manipulation, dressed in guilt instead of rage. I stared at them for a long time. You mean if I give Emily what she wants, then we're family again? Mom blinked, like she didn't expect me to say it out loud. We just want peace. No, I said quietly. You want control. They both froze. For 30 years, you've called my boundaries selfishness, and my silence peacekeeping. You raised me to serve everyone's comfort but my own. I took a breath. That ends now. Dad's jaw tightened. So you're cutting us off? I'm protecting myself. He scoffed. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, but regret is lighter than resentment. They left in silence, tires crunching gravel, disappearing down the mountain road, and for the first time in my life, I didn't run after them. Catherine helped me find a therapist who specialized in family trauma. The first session, I told the therapist that I felt guilty for not feeling guilty. She smiled gently. That's what healing sounds like. Week by week, the noise inside my head quieted. I started journaling, hiking again, rebuilding pieces of myself I didn't know I'd lost. Last month, the extended family held a reunion, the first in years without my parents or Emily. Catherine came early to help me set up tables by the lake. She looked around the property, smiling at the restored porch, the repaired roof. Grandpa would be proud, she said. You've kept it alive, not just the place, but the spirit. As the sun dipped behind the ridge, people started arriving. Cousins, aunts, uncles. There was laughter this time, real laughter. No eggshells, no whispered alliances. My cousin Sarah pulled me aside later. You know what's different? She said. No one's scared anymore. We're not walking on glass just to keep your parents happy. It feels like a real family again. Her words hit deep, because that's what this fight had been about all along. Not a cabin, not money, but freedom from the quiet tyranny of guilt. Evan came that evening, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers he'd picked on the drive up. He kissed my forehead and handed them to me. For the garden you and Catherine wanted to start, he said. We planted them the next morning. Lavender, sage, and marigolds. Catherine laughed, dirt on her hands. Life and color. That's what this place needed. When she left, I stayed outside, sitting on the porch Grandpa built. The air smelled like cedar and damp soil. The mountains loomed steady in the distance, like witnesses to every chapter I'd survived. Inside, on the mantel, there's a photo of Grandpa and me, both of us grinning, covered in sawdust. On the back, in his shaky handwriting, it says, Anna, the keeper of memories and traditions. Take care of our place. I touched the frame. I am, Grandpa, I whispered, and I finally understand what you meant. A week later, a letter arrived, forwarded by Catherine. It was from Emily, 4 pages long. The first 3 were accusations, guilt trips, recycled lines about family duty, and forgiveness. But the last paragraph was something else. Mom and Dad are thinking of downsizing. Things are tight. I wish you'd talk to them. They're not doing well. For a moment, I felt the old instinct, the urge to fix, to rescue. Then I folded the letter neatly and placed it in the drawer with the others. Because I finally understood. Compassion doesn't mean surrender. They chose their consequences. I chose my peace. Now, every weekend, the cabin fills with laughter again. Catherine, Uncle James, cousins, even neighbors dropping by for bonfires and stories. No guilt, no manipulation. Just people who show up because they want to, not because they're owed something. Sometimes Evan and I sit on the porch, mugs of cocoa in hand, watching the lake shimmer. He always says the same thing. I get it now. This place isn't just a cabin, it's a mirror. It shows who belongs here and who doesn't. He's right. I keep the cabin not because it's mine, but because it's the proof that peace can survive even the ugliest betrayal. To everyone who once told me I'd regret losing my family, I didn't lose them. I just stopped mistaking their control for love. I didn't burn a bridge. I walked off it before they could push me into the water. And as I sit here now, watching the sunrise light up the lake, I know one thing for certain. The cabin stands strong, and so do I. Some traditions deserve to live. Others, like guilt disguised as loyalty, deserve to end. They ended with me, because keeping what's rightfully yours isn't selfish. It's survival, it's peace, it's freedom.